Morning, everybody. Are we ready? Thanks for coming along. We're here today to discuss our Fianna Fáil private members' time today. We're taking the Control of Economic Activity Occupied Territories Bill in our time. The bill, as you know, was sponsored as a private member's bill in the Seanad by Senator Francis Black. It has completed its passage through the Seanad. We were asked a number of months ago by Senator Black and indeed a number of the NGOs and groups who were supporting the bill, namely Trócaire and Christian Aid and the Irish Congress of Trade Unions, if we would facilitate the passage of the bill through the Dáil in our time, which we're very, very happy to do. As you know, the bill seeks to ban the importation and the sale and the trade-in of goods and services which originate from illegal occupied territories. That's anywhere worldwide. There is, I suppose, a bit of pushback from the bill from the Middle East, particularly from the Israelis, who have taken a position of opposition to the bill. We're very keen to stress that the bill isn't written or designed to target trade with Israel. It's specific in that it is to deal with the importation and the trade of goods from internationally recognised illegal settlements in illegal occupied territories worldwide. The bill, as we see it, is an attempt to stand up for what the rule of international law has stated. So from that point of view, we're happy to support it. We haven't come to this decision lightly. As a party, as you know, we have had a long-held interest in promoting peace in the Middle East, way back to the 1980s, when the late Brian Lenihan Sr., as Taoiseach Minister for Foreign Affairs, Ireland was the first EU state to advocate for a two-state solution. We continue to maintain that position in terms of researching and coming to a decision to support this bill. I and my colleague Deputy Kelleher and some people from our research office, we travelled to the Middle East to inform ourselves in relation to the situation out there. So we're happy to progress it. Really, the two-state solution is at a stalemate. This bill seeks to, in our view, challenge the status quo, and I suppose learning from the example of the South African, the apartheid and the ban on apartheid goods back in the late 80s, which did have a positive impact, we feel that now is the right time to support this bill and to seek to advance the bill.
What about the argument now, particularly given the time it's in it, that this is a European competence, that we can only stop imports from certain countries and the rest of the EU does likewise, and given the time it's in it, that it might be slightly foolhardy to press ahead just now?
Well, you know, when is a good time to press ahead with anything? Of course, it's being opposed by the government based on their legal advice, and it's fair to say there's legal advice to the contrary. We haven't seen the government's legal advice. Obviously, they don't publish it, but there has been fairly high-level advice which has been offered to say that what's known as the public policy exception in terms of an individual member state adopting a position can be used. And in this instance, we agree with the legal advice which the proposers and the promoters of the bill have sought. So from that point of view, we're happy to support it. If you look at the example which I cited earlier on in relation to 1987 with the South African and the importation, the Dunn Stores issue that time, successive Attorney Generals here in Ireland, namely Peter Sutherland and John Rogers, they gave differing interpretations and different points of view, which allowed the government to then proceed to oppose the importation back then.
Would you say that you've been lobbied by both sides of the argument here, both Israel and Palestine, in terms of bringing this bill forward? And secondly, it looks like, obviously, with the massive support that it has, that it will be passed and the government will fall on this one. But what next, I suppose? Will it just go into a limbo of bills, or is there any steps that you'd like to see afterwards to make it progressed?
Yeah, well, obviously it's got to go through the various stages within the Dáil. Today, second stage. There is, I suppose, an open question out there in relation to will the government seek to oppose it by virtue of the money message and not issuing a money message. And we don't. We would hope, and we will be saying to government that that's not the way to oppose this bill. This bill has a lot of popular support from the Irish public for the right reasons which we've outlined, because we feel that it is the right thing to do, that the status quo which pertains at the moment in terms of there being no Middle East peace process cannot pertain, and just the fact that we keep condemning and that the international community keeps condemning the expansion and the proliferation of the settlements in the Middle East, for example in the West Bank, but yet don't do anything else, hasn't changed anything. So the bill will hopefully form a new type of a departure in terms of individual countries looking at their trade policy in terms of goods and services which come from these illegal settlements. In terms of the money message, what I would say to the government is you can't stifle Parliament by the abuse of money messages. And actually the former clerk of the Dáil is on record as saying, that where a bill simply seeks to provide an extension of an existing criminal justice legislation which passed, which criminalised the purchaser of sex, as you know, and there was a conviction, one of the first convictions in the court recently, that conferred on Garda Síochána an extra responsibility to investigate that type of crime, and there was no money message issue. So what we're saying here with this piece of legislation is, yes, it will be an extra role for the Customs and on Garda Síochána, but no different to any other bills. They get their annual block budget to implement the laws of the land, so money message should not be an issue. Absolutely. Look, we like any piece of legislation, we get lobbied for and against, and we take our time to inform ourselves. But I mean, interestingly, Airbnb, for example, you will know, have taken a position in relation to the settlements in the Middle East, where they now don't list any properties which are available to let in the Middle East. So we hear a lot about lobbying and a lot about the high-profile lobbying, but Airbnb is one of the biggest and most high-profile corporations in the world, and indeed an American one at that, and they've taken a corporate policy decision which is very supportive of this type of stance.
Have you any idea at this stage, if this legislation were enacted, what's the value of the goods and services you're talking about?
Well, it's estimated, there's a couple of estimates, the Irish Government, the Central Statistics Office and the EU, that the trade in Ireland in product which comes from the settlements is anywhere in the region between 500,000 to 1.5 million euros per annum. That's the amount of, or the volume, the value of trade to this country in terms of product and service which originates from the settlements.
And then you wonder about, is it going to really bother them that much if we do that, for the price that we pay for it?
Yeah, well, you see, there, that's the point that's been made, that the bill is more of a powerful moral statement rather than an economic statement, and that was the point which was made back in the late 80s with the Dunnes Stores, with the produce coming from South Africa. That was a powerful statement at that point in time, and you know how that played out.
Money and forward, but I think on this particular issue, we did visit the West Bank, we did visit Israel, we saw firsthand, but I think it is important to put on the record that our party supporting this particular bill based on the fact that it is actually not country specific. It is about occupied territories across the globe. We do accept that the trade is an EU competency, and we see that very much unfolding in the context of the Brexit negotiations that are ongoing at the present time. But with regard to this particular bill, the trade aspect sends out a strong message that Fianna Fáil and Ireland hopefully is supportive of international law, the rule of law internationally, and wherever there are illegal settlements in whatever country in disputed territories, that the rule of law should pertain in the context of trade.
What other occupied territories are you thinking of?
Well, I mean, you have several occupied territories in Ossetia and other areas around that particular part of the former Soviet Union. So, I mean, you know, there is places which are disputed, but in the context of international law, there are a number of places that are specifically mentioned, and I think that's important that, you know, we accept that international law must be upheld, and Ireland is just in the a message that we believe that it must be to the fore in trade as well, and also in the context of moral views about illegal settlements and occupation.
Is this a new policy? Is this a policy that the SDLP agree with you in this new policy partnership? And is the policy partnership that you will unveil in more detail tomorrow, is that essentially just the foundations for a merger in the years to come?
Well, look, you're aware of the discussion that we had at our parliamentary party last night. You're all very well informed as to what happens at our parliamentary party. So an announcement will be made tomorrow by our party leader, so I don't want to steal his thunder, and indeed the thunder of Colm Eastwood at this point in time. The talks, as you know, have been going on for a period of time, and we received a briefing on that last night at our parliamentary party, and the proposal which is on the table to form a partnership was fully endorsed by our parliamentary party last night, and tomorrow the party leader travels to Belfast to make the formal announcement. So if you'll excuse me, I won't go any further.
There won't be any Fianna Fáil candidates in the upcoming local elections in the north, but what about the next Northern Assembly elections, the next Westminster elections? Can you rule out the prospect of Fianna Fáil candidates in those?
We're not going to get into that at this point in time. You know, they're issues which the party leader and the leader of the SDLP will be able to deal with tomorrow at their
just
announcement.
clarify, was there an understanding from party leadership that sitting TDs could not contest EU seats? And if there was, when did that change?
That was never stated by the party leader. I never heard the party leader ever state that. It was certainly a view which was being expressed by some people. It wasn't, but it certainly wasn't an official party position that I'm aware of, or indeed a statement that the party leader ever made.
Okay. And sorry, just to return to the occupied territories for a moment, there's reports today that the government fear diplomatic repercussions from Israel, such as possibly closing the embassy in Dublin. Is that a concern that you share, or how would you respond to that?
I don't think. I think that's an overreaction. I don't think we've had a lot of discussion with the Israelis in relation to this. When myself and Deputy Kelleher travelled to Israel and to the West Bank, we spent a day engaging with the Israeli. The government and the parties within the Knesset, and we do so regularly here with their previous ambassador and with the new ambassador. We're at pains to point out that this bill doesn't target trade between Ireland and Israel. The bill, as you know, will hopefully impact on trade between on product which comes from the illegal settlements. So we don't see why they should react like that, and we will continue to engage constructively and openly with them in relation to it, and we would hope that it wouldn't come to that.
Now, last week your colleague Brendan Smith described the 6 counties as occupied territories. Does this bill that you're supporting on the side of that?
No, it doesn't.
Right. International law is what we work under.
All right, thanks everybody.
Thank you.
No, just keep an eye on it. No, you're keeping an eye on it.